CCMB, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, Hyderabad. On behalf of CCMB, I'm privileged to welcome all of you and the distinguished speakers of today to Vigyan Yatra, which is part of the India International Science Festival, IISF 2020. The theme of IISF 2020 is to make India self-reliant, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and to contribute to global welfare. The aim is to engage public in science and to celebrate the joy of science. The festival intends to inspire curiosity and to make learning more rewarding for the younger generation. So this year's IISF is the 6th edition, and it is being organized from 22nd to 25th of December on a virtual platform. And it's being coordinated centrally by CSIR NISTATS and CSIR as the nodal agency. So let me just skim through the agenda for the day, so you're oriented for what is expected for the entire day. So we shall start off by a discussion on the process of science with Dr. Rakesh Mishra, Director CCMB, and soon we'll have Dr. Shekhar Mande, Director General CSIR, who will also join us. Then we have a talk on biology of cell division by Dr. Megha Kumar, and another interesting talk on studies of brain development using Drosophila melanogaster by Dr. Sonal Nagarkar Jaiswal. We shall break for lunch and then we'll resume at 2 p.m. Followed by that, we have 4 more interesting talks by Dr. Pavitra Chavle, Dr. Hitendra Patel, Dr. Swasti Rai Chaudhary, and a very exciting talk on ecological diversity by Dr. Meghna Krishnadas. So I have a small advice for all our audience out there. So you can pose your questions on the social media. We will try to answer them by the end of the session. That's it from my end. So without further ado, let me have the privilege of moving over to Ms. Annapurna, who is a PhD scholar at CCMB. Over to you, Annapurna.
Thank you, Shravanti. And it is great that there are so many people attending this session. And so I'll be starting this session by addressing a few questions to Dr. Rakesh Mishra. The idea is to discuss the process of science. So Rakesh, I think I'm going to pick your brain for now. The first question that I want to ask you is, who does science, or rather the possibility of who can do science?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Annapurna. And first of all, I'll also welcome all the participants for this fantastic, very unique event, which we call as the India International Science Festival. So that brings us a more natural and celebrative mood for all of us. And the science is like a normal activity of life, if you look at it that way. So we can celebrate, we can talk, we can have fun with this. So with that, actually, just to continue just what I said, we are all actually born as scientists. Every individual is born as scientist, because the most important thing scientists do is ask questions. And if you've seen in first 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, how every child asks questions, almost annoys the parents after a point. There are so many questions. So that means we are born to science. A scientist does looks around and says, so how does it happen? Why does it happen? And how do I find out? This curiosity, which is inbuilt in our brain, is actually the fundamental of science or a scientist. So therefore, I think all of us are scientists. Slowly, when we start what we call as growing up, we start losing that. We start assuming that we know. And then we get influenced by many things. But inside, in the core of us, all of us are like a child. If we preserve our curiosity, we are all scientists.
That was very well put, Rakesh. And so to continue with that line of thought, we all are scientists, but traditionally there has been a process to science, like the kind of questions that have been posed and the way it has been done. So what are your ideas on how that can be expanded to include more people, on basically the idea of how does one do science and how can more people get into it?
Yeah. So once we have a scientific approach towards things, a rational approach towards things, then we are in a way doing science. There are methods of science. The first thing is, as I said, you ask question. Even if you don't ask question, you're looking around, you're curious, you're observing. And when you're observing, then you have to do something which is very important for science is recording your observations. When you do experiment, we have lab notebooks in which we record because we'll not remember every day what we do. So recording the what we can call it data or your observation is a very fundamental thing of science because it you don't lose things and you whatever at that time you understood you put exactly in the same way so that it can be used not only by you but by others as well so that it becomes into the scope of scientific inquiry what you observe. So that is one thing. And then uh, other most important thing in science is sometimes we don't realize is to share what you have observed. You first interpret, you articulate, and then you share. And then this sharing also is something very, very natural. So when you make a nice observation, you saw moon, it was looking something else. You saw a bird which you've never seen before. Uh, you when you heard a very nice song or you came across a very nice joke, all these things you want to tell someone because it's very, very natural that if you got a joke immediately in WhatsApp and wherever, whatever is the media, you start sharing with people. Similarly, so sharing is actually our innate, a kind of very natural tendency. We start to curb it after some time. Curbing is same way the way we start to curb our tendency to ask questions, thinking that what others will say, the others will think that I don't know this, or it is very stupid, or I feel a little bit complex that if I tell others will also know. There are many those sorts of things which start to pollute our uh, bond brain, which is a scientist brain. So when we share with others, then others will respond to it. They will react. They will go. Then I also saw this bird last year around the same time, or something of this kind. So, which means now you start to discuss, you start to exchange, and you can come across thoughts which is stimulated by discussion. That's why dialogue in any sphere of our life is so, so important because once you start talking, then you yourself discover many things which you are not thinking or didn't come to your mind earlier because you were thinking in one line while discussing with someone, you start doing a cross pollination of ideas, question, and it stimulates you to things in different ways. So it's very important that we share and we discuss and then make a progress in that. So when you are so this is a normal. I mean, as I said, we are all. It just depends upon approach. We are all in a way scientists, and we should have scientific approach towards scientific attitude towards. So we'll not be biased, will not be uh, uh, um, uh, misled by wrong information going along because we'll have tendency to verify what is right or not. Very often it will happen we don't know the answer. So which is a very common thing we don't know. But when we don't know, we leave it open to inquiry. We don't assume and conclude based on half knowledge. Realizing that we don't know something is very important step for any sphere of life. So is in the science. We shouldn't conclude and make hypothesis unless we have rational or logical way of explaining something. So these are I'm what I feel is there's nothing unique about science in any form of science activity. It's just that you are looking at natural things around and putting it in a rational way so that you can share with others and make progress, which otherwise you alone you will not be able to do.
Yes, I think the way you put that was very correct, that it's very important to share ideas. And I think that has to go in a two-way street. People who are professionally doing science should communicate with the general public about, and the general public should give their inputs to the ones who are doing science as a career. Going tangentially from this, there's this whole idea of citizen science that is coming up a lot, where citizens in general and people in general can involve in science and actually influence policy decisions and contribute significantly. So what do you think about that?
So that is something I will say that never ever we have been so privileged and so really poised, I would say, to make discoveries which earlier 10 years ago it was not possible. 20 years ago you can forget it. When we started our career, there were no computers. You write down everything with a pen paper. Now anything you want to know, any information, in minutes you get the information. So that is one thing, that availability of information, and so is also misinformation. So we should be smart and check with each other and filter the information. That's important. But the important thing is that now we are having technologies of smartphone, internet. So in fact, we can actually talk to someone on a regular basis, exchange information, which is, can be picture. You saw a plant you have never seen before. You can immediately share the picture to somebody else. You saw a bird or an insect, you can and behave them in certain ways. You can share. So we are so well poised now to work as a team. It can be individual. I can have a hobby. I go in the a particular garden and observe every day what happens, record and keep. I can make it with my family. I can do with my circle or community. Then I can start making network through WhatsApp, through these things for the region, for the country, and even globally. You can, and there are now such activities where you can people have a network of the biodiversity, space, observation, stars. So many. I mean, this is something. Your imagination is the limit. Your creativity has now so many ways of doing something which was not possible in the area of science, and so you can do it as research. I mean, don't forget, research doesn't mean somebody in a lab coat with some kind of funny-looking machine doing something with wearing a lot of mask and protection and this thing. That's how in TV or in books or in the posters we show the science. In fact, that's not science. That is some technique you are doing at that time. Actually, when you are doing that, you are not thinking of science. Then you are doing a technical thing which anybody can do. Science is in your mind when you ask questions and when you compare facts, when you correct your hypothesis. That is science. So that can be done. So we have now new way of actually asking questions. We can now address issues of animal behavior, biodiversity, climate change, even pollution. These kinds of, we can have an idea, we can collect information, exchange with each other, and come up with the findings which are not possible. So I think, at least in this forum, India International Science Festival Forum, where we are talking about people involving in science, we should get out of the lab. Science is happening outside. The word is not in the lab. That is a very small, limited way where we want to do things. So we should change this image of scientists. If you want to study life science, the way is to go and see the life first. So uh, uh, can 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 we connect in what plant which insect comes, which butterfly likes which plant, so we can connect that. For us, this plant may not be important. For the butterfly, that's the only plant where it will come. Then butterflies are important because at least something, they are prey of some other insect or other bird. They are involved in pollination. I mean, we have to understand that the life has evolved with each other, right? With the whole ecosystem. We don't evolve as a isolated individual species. We interact with the rest of the environment. And so understanding, knowing is like knowing yourself, knowing your own species in a broader and more comprehensive context. And that is when, if we start thinking like that, everybody will conscious of the environment, everybody will get conscious of the destruction that we are doing in the name of development. And that is something which is so important, so urgent, and it's possible to do now because we can communicate using the systems that we are having these days in form of internet and phone. So I hope many young people are watching this program. I would invite them to get involved in such activities other than spending time. All of us are spending time in WhatsApp and even destroying our fingers. But at least let's do something in which you learn and you expand your scope of thinking, connect with people whom you may have never met or you may never meet, but do something productive and creative with them by connecting. Because we can now study environment and compare in a different side of the globe. That person will do observations. So you design things and develop your method. So ask question, that is first. Then the way, the breakdown, depending on the problem, break it down into pieces so that you can ask how to solve this problem, how to address this question if not solved, and then start building slowly, and in the end of the day, after some time, come up with a story, and nice story, and we like each other telling story. So that's how the life will be. That's how the science is. It's a fun, it's a way of life, and we are curious. We are collecting information and building it together to make a story, so that we can share with others and know more about ourselves, our environment, because that's what will be this drive. Because I think every day we should ask, who am I, what I'm doing, how it is going, and those kind of things. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm drifting from what you asked, but I think science is like any other activity of life. It's just that we have to organize and do it in a systematic way and have fun every day. When you observe an insect flying, that's a pleasure. When you share in information with others, we shouldn't ask, so what do I gain? This guy may know, but what do I gain? What do I gain by telling joke? I have fun. When I see somebody laughing, when I say something, it pleases me also. Imagine telling joke to yourself, to a mirror, will you laugh? But you will, so that's pleasure of sharing the information and enjoying is what is the fundamental of this. And we shouldn't be too calculative each time that what do I gain one. So we make it a way of life. So we are a storyteller with each other what we observe, and that's how we build, learn more, and get more ideas which we might not, because creativity or innovative thinking needs some stimulation of your mind.
Right. Um, I think that was very well enunciated. So going a little deeper into that, what you said makes a lot of sense. That anybody can ask questions, anybody can ideally or theoretically design experiments and systematically think about it. But a lot of times, I feel young students who want to get into it need some mentoring or need some directionality in that sense. So how do you think? An event like IISF can help in that direction, because a lot of times students are so caught up in their school work or in their college work that they barely have time to think about these things, or even if they do think about these things, they don't have the right path to get into it. So how can IISF or research institutes like CCMB contribute to that and help with the whole process?
Yeah. I think when we are talking about young people looking guidance, looking for guidance, those kind of things. So we have, see, we have also a professional life, right? You want to something in career, you have to follow a career, you have to follow a professional path. We have been talking till now is that everyday life, and it's in the context of science, or being involved in science in larger sense. So the events like IISF, which brings together or the institutions like CCMB, universities, and so on, makes us aware that science has to go beyond. We have to be more interactive, tell people what we are doing, why we are doing, and make them excited, feel them interested, so that they take science as a career. We have to see that, see, we are a young country, there are lots of young people, but that doesn't mean that everybody will become scientists and everybody is ready to do science. So one important thing for the students when they're choosing science, that they want to choose science careers, to figure out what they want to do in life. what excites them most. Try many things, theoretically in mind, but then you see that, oh, this question really makes me excited. The way some of us may like music so much, because that's what involves you. So you are going to be a musician in future. You will create new kinds of music and entertain people, help people relax and so on. So similarly, the first thing should be to and not get influenced by that your elder brother, sister did something, or your neighbor's son became this, and you have to think yourself, what is it that you like? After all, you are no less than anyone. You can do whatever anybody else can do. We all are capable of doing what anybody else can do. So once we have got rid of that inhibition, then we choose. And so that is one thing where I think this kind of festival are the places like CCMB should should contribute, because they can interact with people. Now there are so many methods of interacting. Discuss with them. Many of the times they may say, "Oh, this looks very uninteresting to me." There's nothing wrong. I mean, we have all our liking, and some may feel excited. Yeah, this is what I want to be. I want to be doctor not because somebody said, but I want to help people understand how body works, why things go wrong, and it's so exciting to make somebody feel better by correcting their problem. So then you are going to be really doctor. But if you are imagining the hospital environment, you are coming in a big car and lots of people ask, those are different kinds of attractions. That's not internally what has come to you. So the core of the profession in which you will go will be more suited when actually you, in the core of your heart, you like doing that. So that is one thing. So that is to choose your career path, and it may take time. And having said that, there's nothing wrong in changing your career path. It's absolutely fine. People change career path when they have finished their graduation, they do another study, or when they reach 50s or 60s, people can change career and do wonderful. There are tons of examples of this kind. So it's never late, never anything is too difficult, too far away from your reach. So we should liberate ourselves from limitations that we often impose on ourselves. And the activities of this when we come in a platform where we are interacting with each other, discussing with each other. You can ask questions, and what are the new things that, I mean, the place like CCMB, why we are doing something. I think that is, to me, that is one of the key things we should be able to convey to people, that why we are doing something. What you are doing is one, then it will be good in telling that. But why you are doing that is very important. That's where the other person will ask, do I also have reason to do this? And then they can choose how they want to. And of course, there are other career counseling and other things, what fellowship, and those are, I will say, trivial. I mean, they're important, not that trivial, because you need those things. So that also required, and this kind of gathering, which even if it is virtual, it gives a platform for us to share those things, give some tips, make others aware of things which maybe I may not have come across. So these are the things which kind of fast forward information exchange, and then helps people, younger people, students who are in that age, to take career decisions. And that is how we can help. And this is not only that we should do, it is our responsibility. So we must do it, because as a academic institution, I think it's our responsibility that we pay sufficient attention to this and consider it an important part of our profession.
Right. That's very correct, Rakesh. That it's important that people stay informed, and it's important that institutions like ours and such events disseminate the right information for students to take the right decision for themselves, and also ask the right questions. Like you mentioned, why do science, or why do we want to do something or research at something, is way more important than how does one go about it. So you begin with why you want to do something, and then you start thinking about how to do it. So yes, that's very correct. So there are a few questions coming up from students,
Sure, yeah.
and they're very technical. So I'm not sure if we should.
Okay, I don't know if I get when it comes technical.
Yeah.
I may
So
not. I have no qualms in telling I don't know, because yeah, yeah,
uh,
please.
So a couple of students have asked questions. So there's one student who's asking how to do better in competitive exams, and especially they have a problem in doing well in physics examinations, it seems. So I guess these are the kind of questions that I guess a lot of the
Um,
attendees will have.
how to do? I will get more general questions. One thing in first of all, what I feel is that when we are studying something, we should not study for exam. So first important thing is you should study, read, watch or whatever to learn, to know things, and you should know the core of the matter. Just by name, we shouldn't get driven by too many names and jargons. So they are I mean, if I ask what is this and somebody tells this is a computer, let's see, I'm seeing it first time, just doesn't make any sense. But I start going telling, oh, I have seen computer, but I never known what the computer is, what it does. So similarly for basic science or whether it's physics or biology, we must understand the fundamental principle, and it should become like a part of my thinking. Then only I will be able to interpret, then I'll be able to not to score marks and not leaving that this chapter is not important, that chapter is not important, that is more important. Last year questions were asked from here, so this time it may be somewhere else, and those kind of, we all used to do that during our exams to make shortcuts. And that is the beginning part. So once you have understood the subject and understood the fundamentals of this, I mean, when I mean this, I don't know how to express it, not just the words and jargons and technical terms and equations. I mean, you have got the feel, you have got really the matter in your hand, in terms of its understanding. So that is first thing. Without that, you may bug up how to answer a question or how to solve a thing. But in the exam, if little bit change happens, you will not be able to do, because you don't understand the fundamentals that are the basis of solving that question or answering that question. So once you have figured out the basics, then of course there are practice is the other thing, so that you don't take too long to write or answer or think, because you know how to do it. But practicing is something very important. It's like a cricket. First you must understand the basics of it, then you do net practice is never enough. And then the last thing is, when you go to exam, just go to enjoy this, because now you have done whatever you could do up to that time. There is no way of going back in time. That's one thing we cannot do. So there is no gain by worrying that I didn't do this, I didn't do, I'm not prepared. Now you are there. Once you have bat in your hand, you are in the field. Now you don't think that I didn't do proper practice. Just look at the baller and face it. So in the same way, now you are now you enjoy that. So, and then only you will be able to do your best. And then after that, it's not anything philosophical, that you must enjoy what you are doing. Results will come sometimes. Sometimes in competitive exam particularly, there may be 10 other guys who are better than you. What is wrong in that? Maybe some other time you will be better than somebody else, because these are all competition is unfortunate like this, that if 100 people go, only 10 seats are there. So the guy who's 11th, maybe that day became 11th. So don't take tension of being successful when you are actually performing or actually learning and doing this thing. Success and all is something later that will come. And while preparing, while writing the exam, just enjoy this and do it to the best of your capacity, because that's all is in your hand. How others will do is not in your hand. So you shouldn't worry about it. You should worry about only where you can make a difference. If you can't change it, then there's nothing to worry. You can observe, note, and do whatever. But it doesn't make sense to worry about what you cannot change.
Uh, since you mentioned philosophy, and so we've been talking about the fundamentals here. So one of our attendees has gone a little beyond and asked, with the help of science, can we change the world?
So the world, see, our focus should be to understand the environment and the world first. Then we should worry. We should not worry about changing it, because to change something, you must know what you want to do. So for changing, knowing is most important. So we should be a good student. That's what is the thing. And then we will change it. And if anything, what generally we interpret or say as changing is in terms of technology, in terms of transport, in terms of communication, science only will change. What else can change? Is the use and misuse and whatever of scientific knowledge or technology that is an outcome of any basic or science knowledge is what is going to change. So the change is unavoidable. That will happen, and if we understand better, we will be able to contribute to better change, more understood situation rather than jumping in something which we do not know in darkness. So that is something very important. So you're very right that the world will change and science will change it. Our responsibility is to be understand and we try to help towards a change which is more constructive, more yeah, makes the place better than worse.
Thank you, Rakesh. So I see Dr. Mande has joined us. Good morning, Dr. Mande. So for all attendees, Dr. Mande is a Director General of CSIR. And I think the first question that I would like to address to him, as someone asked, one of the attendees has asked, what research does CSIR do? It's a very broad question, but I guess Dr. Mande is very well placed to take that.
I want to welcome Dr. Mande and to joining at the right time.
Exactly the right.
Answer this question.
No, so before the COVID period began, we were all busy traveling here and there. And I think there's a good old time, right? I mean, we could meet in person and interact with each other and all. And all of a sudden, everything had changed. And I realized that our times have become so precious that I'm attending 2 meetings simultaneously. So at this moment, I'm logged into a meeting in Goa, where Honorable Chief Minister of Goa and Principal Scientific Advisor and all of them are celebrating the memory of Mr. Manohar Parrikar, and partially here. So I muted myself from there and I'm here. So the thing is, the question about CSIR, because CSIR, as you know, has always been tackling frontline R&D issues, and especially those which relate to our country from the very beginning. CSIR started in 1942. It was the first of its kind organization and the only organization pre-independence of its kind in R&D. And today we are spread across 37 different labs in the country. So we work on many, many different areas. Just now I mentioned oceanography in Goa, or geophysics in Hyderabad, or petroleum in Dehradun, mining, minerals, metals, ceramics, and whatnot. I mean, you can think of frontline biotechnology. So a whole lot of things that CSI does. And wherever there is a scope for good R&D, we promote that. There are two kinds of approaches that typically we do. Both the approaches are very well known in R&D. One is a strategic approach in which most of it is driven from the top. For example, India wants to generate a aeroplane for the next generation, a civilian aircraft for the next generation. So we can have another Boeing or Airbus kind of a thing in India in the coming 20 years. Now that kind of R&D has to be driven from the top. There is a future of communication. What many people believe around the world is not in satellites, but in what is called as high altitude platform technology, which is about 20 times cheaper than the satellites, but yet very effective. They're kind of unmanned vehicles. So there's a kind of R&D that CSR would do, but that is top down. At the same time, there are many questions that R&D is research and development. So there are many things which are PI driven, and the PI driven thing is essentially anyone who is curious about nature, what you see around us, and there are fantastic examples in CCMB itself, right? I mean, the work of Shankar Narayanan you have seen is that simple curiosity that how does one ensure fidelity during translation, that the wrong amino acid is not incorporated in translation. And that question actually comes in the way an amino acid is tagged to a particular tRNA synthetase, and then that actually recognizes and then takes it to the ribosome, and the correct amino acid is incorporated. Now that's a very curiosity driven question, and that is what people like Shankar Narayanan address that question very, very nicely. Similarly, what is the origin of humans in Indian continent? Right? Where did human beings come to India from? Now, the popular theory is that the origin of humans is in Africa. The earliest Homo sapiens emerged in Africa, but from there they spread over the world. But it's a very fundamental question, and it's a very curiosity-driven question that also was addressed very effectively by CCMB. So, with both approaches, so the one which is top-down, in which what we see as a very strategically important thing to secure the future of humanity. These are very strategic. The secure energy, for which we must work on clean hydrogen. We must work on carbon capture. So they are the kind of decisions which are taken from the top. And then CSIR initiates research and development of the highest quality in those areas. And a large number of people come together and work in those areas. On the other hand, CSIR also promotes curiosity-driven questions from individual PIs. And what you actually keep seeing, many different kind of examples of those in recent times, that people actually ask very curious questions about nature and then answer them. So research and development is spread in many different kinds of areas in that respect by CSIR.
Thank you, Dr. Mani. That was very well put. And talking about the kind of research CSIR has been doing, someone from the one of the YouTube attendees has asked what has been CSIR's efforts in COVID-19 research. I think this is something that is important and should be addressed.
Okay. Rakesh is of course very well aware of, and he's smiling. Yeah. So see, there are two kinds of efforts that went in, right? One which is of immediate utility to the public, right? I mean, the CSIR wanted to bring all its knowledge base on board and ensure that the impact of the pandemic is felt less by the people. Now that is purely translational work, right? There is R&D of several years of the past that has gone in and that has helped us in tackling that particular one. Now, this is translational work, and all of you are aware, we are so proud that the students of CCMB have come up with modified protocols of reverse this real-time PCR, which actually makes RT-PCR cheaper, faster, equally accurate, no new chemicals, no new instruments, and so on and so forth. Now, this is actually an innovation that has come in. But it has helped in because many of us knew exactly how RT-PCR works, how it does, and all those things. Right? Similarly, a group in Delhi, Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, was working on CRISPR-Cas9. And when the pandemic started, they realized that this technique can be used, or rather repurposed, as a diagnostics for the COVID-19. And they quickly turned that down around for a paper-based diagnostic kit using CRISPR-Cas9, using their own discovered Cas9 enzyme. And that has actually come out as a Feluda test kit, right? So now this is actually very, very translational work. That is our knowledge base we use, the past R&D strengths we use, and translate that for the benefit of mitigating COVID straight away. But apart from that, we have also asked some very curious questions. Now, they're very, very interesting questions. For example, many people talked about whether the convalescent plasma therapy works or not. And what view that emerged in the world was convalescent plasma therapy is not very effective. So we asked the question, why is that? And the group in Calcutta, Indians of Chemical Biology, have actually asked that question and beautifully addressed that it wouldn't probably work in critical patients, but it might still be useful in mild to moderate patients. And they have actually gone into the immunological reasons of that, and they are trying to address that particular question. That's a very nice question. The second question would be, for example, we generate antibodies, right? And how long these antibodies would last? What is the percentage of neutralizing antibodies that would remain in circulation after we have been exposed to the virus? So this is the kind of question that can be done at a very large scale. And therefore, CSIR initiated a survey, sero survey of all its employees. And you'll be happy to know that about 11,000 people we have sampled. And we are going to do that in a longitudinal study. So every 3 months, we are going to do that. And ask a question that how long do these antibodies last? Is there a difference and all? And already some interesting answers are emerging out of it. Similarly, is the virus airborne or not? Now, airborne things, what it means is that does the virus remain suspended into either aerosols or particles in the air for a long time, and how long does it do? Now, to address this question or to answer this question, one must keep sampling air in areas such as ICUs, patient waiting areas, in bus stands, in the markets, in the closed areas like offices, labs, and so on and so forth. And once again, CCMB and IMTech joined hands and they have done this study, and very interesting answers to this are emerging. So apart from the research and development that we have done, asking very curious questions, very fundamental questions about the virus, its spread, and all that, we have also done very good translational work and brought benefits to the people. So we should be very proud that at the moment of a crisis like this, the entire CSR family has stood up and brought benefits of its years of R&D and expertise together for asking these questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mani. That was very well summarized. It has indeed been, I guess, it's an ongoing journey and it's an ongoing fight against the pandemic. And definitely CSR institutes are contributing very well. So there are several more questions coming in. So someone has asked, what are the major achievements of CCMB in particular? So I guess, Rakesh, you could take that in short, and then we can come back to the discussion on
Achievements
IISF.
of CCMB in general, right? Not pandemic related.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah. So CCMB has, so I will just list out just a couple of things. One is, to me, the most important thing is that when CCMB was established, there were no such institutions in the country. So CCMB set the foundation, a confidence in the people that modern biology can be done in the country at that time in early 80s, where even there's a food crisis and those things. So we should not be worried about, I mean, we should be worried, we should not be suppressed by other problems, and science is a natural thing, and in this country it should be done. So that is something CCMB set up an example of addressing the most sophisticated questions which require cutting edge technologies that can be addressed here. So it liberated us from this idea that this cannot be done here and so on. So that is, to me, that is one of really the most important thing. The other thing was CCMB, which people know very well, is the CCMB technology was developed to identify individuals from the DNA material which can be obtained from any cell or blood or anything. So that's called DNA fingerprinting. And CCMB not only developed this technology, went to the agencies, went to the judicial system and convinced them that this is a very important and foolproof technology. And India was probably the second country or a third country in the world to accept DNA fingerprinting as a evidence in the court. So that's a very, very important thing, because it changed actually the way investigations are done. So that is one thing, something very important. CCMB has also worked with many agencies and joint programs, like CCMB has developed a variety of rice, which is not GM, but at the same time it has a resistance brought from some other variety of another wild variety of rice. So this, now for this you don't need insecticides, or you don't need, in fact it's a bacterial disease, so there was not much in terms of preventing this disease or curing this disease for the field, in the field. So it not only does that, it also gives you a rice which is low glycemic index. So and this was developed with ICR Institute, which is also in Hyderabad, Indian Institute of Rice Research. And it is more than a decade of collaboration between these institutions that we have been able to produce this variety, which is grown in many states in the country. Now 8-9 states grow this, and it has a very huge impact for the farmers. The other important thing which may be relevant in this is CCMB is interacting with industry. Although CCMB's main mandate is to do fundamental research, interacting with industry, biotech industry from the very beginning. And in fact, India's first recombinant vaccine was developed in CCMB with Shanta Biotech, and that vaccine against the hepatitis B virus, when it introduced in the market, when it was introduced in the market, the price of the vaccine crashed something like 20-fold. So much so that the companies in the US that were making this vaccine, they closed their shop because they couldn't compete with us. So, and since then, I mean, it's a long story now. India is actually a powerhouse of vaccine, and all of you are hearing how whole world is looking towards India because we are the biggest producer and supplier of vaccine. And as actually Shekhar alluded to, CCMB has contributed in understanding the populating of this continent, how we have originated, how many waves of migrations have happened, whether it's something called Aryan invasion of this country or not, and how we are genetically diverse, but still we have a common thread of DNA that combines from all the way from north to south. The fantastic way of how this continent and the different population ethnic groups have emerged. In fact, CCMB's work has been able to highlight how important India is today in terms of understanding the human biology, because we have 5,000 plus ethnic groups, which means they are genetically distinct. And the many differences, if we compare, then we can figure out what differences we see and what it is, how it is, what are the signature for those differences in the genome. So we can understand now the biology of humans and link it to the genome and therefore the mechanisms and understanding of the system. No one else, because the humans you cannot use. I'm not saying that every other animal we should use for experimentation, but humans you just even cannot do in any way. So this is the and we have put that forth the possibilities of understanding, of course, the diseases, which is important, and then ways of preventing them or curing them. But understanding the human biology, India is going to be the most important contributor. So that's something that has come out of what research has been done here. And I can also mention we developed, although science-wise it may be small, but for the impact-wide it's very huge, which is what we call as wildlife forensics. So we have very active wildlife conservation program. In one of the important things to identify individuals or species. So this has many use. So you can go and we have developed methods of identifying these individuals, not by catching them or taking their blood, even from the fecal samples, from saliva of the animal. If animal goes and rubs itself against a tree or kills another animal, and then from that saliva, from here we can identify. And CCMB has made a tremendous contribution in this. And of course, it helps in preventing the wildlife crime where people kill something and imports. We can trace back. I can just give one simple example in this, that I mean, a couple of years back, the star turtles were some 200 were captured in Chennai airport. So okay, they are forbidden, they are endangered, so you cannot export and so on. Now, but what to do with them? Now, where you those little turtles, what you do? So one thing is you can keep in a zoo, or you cannot give it to people as a pet. So CCMB not only identified their precise type, but we could also tell from which part of the country they have been collected. That is crucial, because then now you can go back and put them in that environment. If you put them in the wrong place, they will not be able to survive, and they will. So these kinds of things which are, I think they're making huge impact, and we are very well connected with the forest and zoo departments all over the country. Even for the COVID, we are having very close connect how to test in the animal. We are testing COVID in wild animals. If samples are collected, and the zoo, if a lion gets sick, we get the sample and we test that. So those are the contribution which you can explain to people, because they can connect to life. And other things, the CCMB's major contributions are in fundamental research, as Shekhar just gave some examples, and many others, how animals develop, how plants develop. We have made basic contributions in understanding biology.
Thanks, Rakesh. There are many questions coming in, but in the interest of time, I think I'll address the final question to Dr. Mande, which is what is IISF? What does it aim to do, and how is it being conducted this year?
IISF, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So IISF is the India International Science Festival that we started celebrating from 2015 onwards. It's a joint venture or a joint collaboration between Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, and Vigyan Bharati, which is a very large NGO which takes science to the public. This year, we are also joined by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So it's a collaboration now between Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Ministry of Family and Health and Family Welfare, and Vigyan Bharati. In 2015, it was held in IIT Delhi. In 2016, in NPL. In 2017, in Anna University. 2018, Lucknow, and 2019 in Calcutta. And this year, it is being held online. So this year, because there's so many ministries involved, we rotate the responsibility. So this year's responsibility has come upon CSIR. It is being held between 22nd and 25th December. 22nd December is the birthday of Srinivasa Ramanujan. 25th December is the birthday of Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And all of you know that he is former Prime Minister, the late former Prime Minister. And he gave us the slogan, or rather he added to the slogan of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan with Jai Vigyan. And he added Jai Vigyan to that slogan because there's some very important developments that took place in 1998, or precisely on 11th May 1998. And that was India successfully tested Pokhran 2, the second peaceful nuclear explosion. India successfully test-fired Akash missiles, and India successfully tested the Hansa aircraft, the two-seater aircraft, for the first indigenously developed and manufactured. And CSIR, of course, the proud development of CSIR is that Hansa is developed by NAL, CSIR Laboratory, National Aerospace Laboratory. Now, to bring out the highlights of Indian science and technology in front of the world is typically what IISF is being organized for. And also, many times people get a wrong impression that all modern science and technology developed essentially in the West and India hardly contributed, and which is a false narrative. There's a lot of science and technology that developed in India, right? I mean, we know from ages, our cities of, for example, if you go to the cities excavations from Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, there's some fantastic examples of how well developed societies were then, about 5,000 years ago. You know, I mean, they could use lost wax technology, of making those pieces out of brass and all. The dancing girl with a very famous statue in the Delhi's National Museum was known then, is even used today. So these are the kind of science and technology that has been always there in our subcontinent. The discovery of zero, where the greatest discovery of all times in mathematics is the discovery of zero. That concept came from India. The numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Would you remember if you were, can you imagine if today we were using Roman numbers, in what year we would be? MMVV. Can anyone tell me what is MMVV? It's 2020. God forsaken, we don't use Roman numerals anymore. And that is a gift of India to the world. You know, I mean, although we call it Arabic, but there's a very famous Arabian mathematician who constructed a library in Baghdad called Harun al-Rashid. You know, and he took this knowledge. There is a very significant exchange of knowledge between India and Arabian mathematics. Arabian mathematics was very well developed then. And he actually took these things from India, the decimal system. And that actually facilitated, imagine now, 1,000 years later, if you have to add 10 and 5, it's so easy to calculate 15. Now try to do it in Roman numericals, and try to add 10 and 5. And you will see how difficult it is, you know. X plus 5 is what? I mean, of course, X plus 5 is X5. But it's not, you cannot continue, I mean, that multiplications and this and that easily. So they are the kind of contributions that have happened in India. Also, there are many people who came from overseas and contributed significantly to the growth of science in India. We very often forget contributions of people like Sir Ronald Ross. Yeah, Ronald Ross discovered malaria right here in Hyderabad. You know, how many of you have gone and seen the Ronald Ross Museum? It's in Begumpet. His original lab record books in a museum in Begumpet near the old airport. You go and see Ronald Ross Museum there. He discovered that this is it is transmitted by mosquito. It's a vector-borne disease. And he made some very careful diagram under the microscope, how those ring-like structures would look at, and those original records exist in that particular museum. Someone called Hafkin. Hafkin was a person who actually distributed lots of vaccines in Calcutta, in Bombay, and so on and so forth. It's amazing. I mean, he's the real original vaccine man in India. So and he worked on plague vaccine and number of them. So these are the contributions that India has made. India continues to make these kind of contributions even today. And it's our duty to project our contributions to the world. And therefore, what we do is that we have festivals like India International Science Festival, and we bring people there. Typical footfall in India International Science Festival is of the order of anywhere between 10 to 15 lakh. So imagine the excitement of taking science to general public and telling them this is what is happening in India. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you should see the people, kind of people who come and look at that. So in the Lucknow, I was still at NCCS Pune, and we took our microscopes and cell lines. There's the common cell lines. What we work in the lab, HeLa, HEC293 and all. And we put the cell lines under the microscope and showed people this is how human cells look like. A few security guards came and they could not believe their eyes. Security guards, policemen, and they saw that, and I mean, you could see on their face what was happening. There's a child who came, and I have that very cherished photograph with me. It's kind of whose growths are stunted and all, and was very afraid to look into the microscope because thought that there's something very scary. And we assured the child there's nothing scary, and you could see the joy on the face of that child. I can show you that photograph sometime after looking into the microscope. And this is what we live for. These are the kind of movement that we live for, that we take our excitement to general public, and we try to convince the public that it is your support that drives our science and technology. It's your support that drives our creativity. We are very creative people, and we want to be all the time motivated. And to keep our motivational levels, we need support from the public. That's why India International Science Festival is being held. This year we will hold 41 different sessions, and we invite all of you to come and join us, support us fully. Please do register. There's no money for registration. All of you register. Please make sure that all your families register. Please make sure that all your friends register for the event, and let us make it a grand success.
Thank you, Dr. Mande. That was very well put. I mean, that's exactly the way you said it, that the reason we do science is, I don't think any of us can do that better. So with that, with the context set for IISF, I will let Shravanti take over